Welcome back to our Wednesday Word. I want to start today by looking at Psalm 131, where remarkably we read these words from David, the warrior king of Israel. He says, "My heart is not proud, O Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me, but I have stilled and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me." In Scripture, oftentimes we see that metaphor of spiritual maturity as a weaned child. So, on the one hand, we were a child at the mother's breast, an image of complete helplessness, completely dependent on God. Without Him, we can do nothing. On the other hand, we see here the picture that David gives is of a weaned child, an image of contentment. So infants will cry in their mother's arms until they get something from mom and they get milk. Only then are they quiet. But a weaned child is satisfied just with the mother herself, with her very presence. And I think here we see depicted pretty vividly and compactly what Job was taught through all his trials. We have to love God for Himself alone, not just for what He may or may not give us. That's the essence of what Jonathan Edwards distinguished between true grace from the experience of devils, as he says, those who hold sound doctrine and tremble before God. We see that in James 2:19. Real grace on the hearts leads us to see, as Edwards says, the beauty and comeliness of divine things as they are in themselves. So we become satisfied with God Himself. Even His transcendent holiness is enjoyed as a beautiful thing, a magnificent thing, which should fill our hearts to contemplate, though we certainly get nothing out of it. If grace was really something that has changed our hearts, we don't ultimately care if life always goes the way that we want it to, as long as we have Him. The joys that we certainly can experience through acclaim, through wealth, through power, they're nothing compared to the eternal acclaim and wealth and power that we have in Him. So a weaned child, it's not just someone who knows this in principle, but who has worked gospel truths, so to speak, into his or her soul as realities that are real, spiritually speaking. And internally, that should quiet the soul into a contentment that's profound, that's poised. And externally, it would mean that humility, a willingness to learn from others. It would mean trusting God implicitly. The believer realizes that the reason God's actions are often opaque is not because we're wise and He's foolish, but it's because He simply is too great and wonderful for us, as that psalm says. So Christians should never have the attitude towards God of, what have you done for me lately, which is the attitude that our world has for one another. As Spurgeon said about this psalm, it's one of the shortest psalms to read, but it's one of the longest psalms to learn.